When I was born back in 1973, my parents named me Daniel. And a few years later, when I was in grade 10, and I remember this in art class, I was having a conversation with my classmates, and I decided to change my name to Dan. So most people know me as Dan today. But I also have two middle names. My first middle name is Scott. And now, according to my mom, my parents were going to call me Scott, but then they decided to call me Daniel. And then my second middle name is Edward, which is my dad's name. I love you, Dad. You're awesome. You're goofy. I love you too, Mom. You know, at one point, David is a no-name individual. I mean, he's a shepherd, away from a lot of the spotlight. But today, he's going to be named king in the second book of Samuel, our first reading. Now, this is quite a moment, because at one point, these tribes of Israel have been fighting each other. Now, it's a little bit unfortunate because it's really brother against brother. And I recall one individual telling me who had experienced war that, for there to be peace, both sides have to want peace. And so obviously this is a point in time when the brothers, or these tribes, want to have peace. Now, two of the tribes are grandsons of Israel, or that is to say Jacob, so we have to be refreshed with that. But nonetheless, David is going to unite them. Now, as Christian people, we recognize there's two very important things that unites us, and it really unites all of humanity. The first thing is that God loves everyone, and we really have to hold firm to that. That's foundational to our faith. The second thing is that the Spirit is present to everyone and is present everywhere. And really, the Spirit and God's love is really what can help us unite each other. And how important that we rely on the Spirit and we rely and receive God's love to stay united with others. In the second reading, the letter to the Colossians, we have a few names for Jesus. The first is that he is the image of the invisible God. Now, this is drawing from the book of Genesis. We are all created in the image and likeness of God. But Jesus is that true image of God. He mirrors who God is to the world. And then we have firstborn. Now, this is a title of honor that was given to Jesus, not because Jesus was powerful and a dominant figure, but because Jesus was humble and generous with others. And then we have Jesus as head of the church. Why do I go to church on Sunday? Simply because of Christ. Why do I remain a Catholic? Simply because of Christ. We can't think of the church separate from Christ. We are united as church to Christ at all times. And Christ is the foundation of the church. In the gospel reading, we have leaders, we have soldiers, and one of the criminals who will name Jesus. Now, they're mocking Jesus with these titles, and yet it's truth. The leaders, identify Jesus as the Christ, and as the chosen one. And Jesus really is. Jesus is the Christ, the anointed one who has come to set the people free. But the people are expecting that this Christ or Messiah is going to give honor and glory to Israel and set them free from anyone who is oppressing them like the Romans. Now, Jesus will do that through his death and resurrection, but this isn't really the way that they're expecting this to be carried out. Now, we have to give the soldiers a little bit of credit. They share some of their sour wine. It was common for soldiers to drink wine. And if we think about it, part of it was to numb the pain of all the violence that they were inflicting on others and all the violence that they were experiencing. And so they want to give the wine to Jesus, to help Jesus during this time of crucifixion. It's bad enough that Jesus has the physical pain of being crucified, but the mockery just adds more pain to the already pain that he's experiencing. Now, the one criminal, he kind of broadens the idea of salvation, save the three of us, the leaders and the soldiers, or Jesus, save yourself from this if you truly are the Christ the chosen one. But Jesus has come to save more than 3 people and more than to save himself. Jesus offers salvation to all of humanity. Christ came to save all people. Now, the good thief, as we know him today, stands up for Jesus. But he recognizes the innocence of Jesus. But it's really that spirit and that love within the good thief that empowers him to identify Jesus as the innocent one. And also he recognizes that Jesus is a king. As he says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Now we can look at this one of 2 different ways. Remember me when you go on a vacation, we might say to a friend. And so our friend will remember us when we're on vacation. Maybe they'll buy us a treat, some chocolate or something. But we can also look at this, that remember me at the end of time when we will be resurrected. So there was this belief at the end of time that there would be a future resurrection. But Jesus says, no, this is a present moment thing. Even in John's gospel, Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And so Jesus offers the good thief paradise. And it's really because the good thief simply turned to Jesus. And so once again, we have this opportunity to receive Jesus Christ, to receive the fullness of resurrection, the fullness of love. And this is made present to us by the Spirit so that we can go out and we can learn other people's names and we can call them by name as we are generous towards them.